7 Planes of Existence. Introduction. In the late 19th century, when Europe was intoxicated with the promises of science and industry, a mysterious woman arrived with words that burned like fire through the cold logic of her age. Her name was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Born in Russia in 1831, Blavatsky wandered the world in search of truths buried far from the polite salons of Europe. She claimed to have studied with yogis in India, mystics in Tibet, and initiates in Egypt. Whether every detail of her travels was literal or symbolic hardly matters. What shook the world was not her passport, but her voice. In 1875, in New York City, she co-founded the Theosophical Society, declaring openly that she carried fragments of a hidden doctrine, a teaching older than any church, older than science, older even than civilization. By 1888, she published her magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, a work so dense, so radical, that readers either dismissed her as insane or fell silent before the enormity of what she described. She did not come with soft words of comfort. She came with a map of reality itself, a map of 7 planes of existence stretching from the physical world you can touch to the unimaginable silence of the Absolute. Now pause and imagine this. What if your entire life, your ambitions, your loves, your fears, even your spiritual beliefs, were only the lowest rung of that cosmic ladder? What if all the philosophies, all the religions, all the sciences we cling to are merely shadows on the first step, while the true staircase ascends beyond the grasp of ordinary thought? Blavatsky did not flatter her readers. She warned them. She told them that humanity lives asleep, mistaking the outermost shell for the essence. The physical world feels solid, tangible, and absolute. And yet she insisted it is only the slowest vibration, the most deceptive illusion of all. For daring to say this, she was branded a fraud, a witch, a plagiarist. Victorian journalists mocked her, scientists dismissed her, the church condemned her. And still, her words survived, whispered among those hungry for a knowledge deeper than catechisms or equations. So I must ask you, why does the modern world still recoil from her name? Why is Blavatsky, who influenced Gandhi, Yeats, and countless spiritual movements, still spoken of as dangerous, controversial, or irrelevant? Because if what she revealed is true, if you are more than a body, more than emotions, more than thoughts, then no government, no church, no media, no system of control has the final say over you. You would discover that reality itself is constructed, layered, and sustained by laws hidden from your senses. And once you know this, you cannot be enslaved by appearances again. Blavatsky's crime was not madness, it was a revelation. She tore the veil too early, exposing secrets the world was not ready to face. Here, then, is the first truth you must hold. The world you defend as real is not the origin of your existence. It is the surface skin of a vast architecture. Blavatsky compared it to a classroom, not one where you learn basic truths, but one where you are taught falsehoods so that you may eventually learn to see through them. The physical plane is a theater of illusions, where beauty can hide poison, weakness can mask power, and appearances betray substance. And unless you train your inner senses, you will keep falling for the trick. You will go on mistaking reflections for reality, shadows for substance, masks for truth. This is why she spoke of 7 planes, to remind seekers that this world is not the whole, but merely the beginning of the journey. Understand this: you are not here by accident. If these words have reached you, if you have not turned away, it is because something in you already knows. Something in you refuses to be lulled by the surface. but do not expect comfort. This journey is not about polishing your ego with bright slogans or chasing fleeting happiness. It is about tearing away every layer of illusion until nothing remains but the core. Blavatsky herself warned that awakening is not triumph. It is disillusionment. It is the slow death of every false certainty until you stand before the raw truth. And so we begin as she began, not with heaven, but with earth. Not with the infinite, but with the finite. The first plane of existence, the world of flesh and stone, the prison of matter, the stage where illusions walk in daylight. The physical plane. Chapter 1. The first plane. The physical prison. Imagine for a moment that everything you see, everything you touch, everything you take for granted as solid, is not the foundation of life, but the first trick of the stage. Helena Blavatsky insisted that what most of us call reality is in fact the outermost shell of existence. It feels immovable, permanent, absolute. But she declared it was the slowest vibration, the heaviest and most deceptive layer of all. The physical plane, the classroom of illusions, the prison we mistake for paradise. At first glance, the physical seems undeniable. You eat and you grow strong. You fall and you bleed. You place your hand on fire and you burn. Cause and effect appear simple, immediate, merciless. But Blavatsky taught that the physical world is not a single layer. It is a double skin. One side visible, matter, atoms, cells, the body. The other invisible, a subtle sheath she called the etheric double. This ether is the hidden current of life. Without it, flesh collapses into a corpse. Without it, plants wither, animals die, and stones lose their resonance. Science may not measure it, yet animals sense it, mediums perceive it, and true healers, those mocked by modern medicine, learn to guide it like invisible fire. Think of it as the Wi-Fi of creation, the hidden network through which emotions make the body sick, thoughts alter the rhythm of the heart, and intentions ripple into matter. You cannot see it, yet it carries everything. And here lies the first shock. Every place, every object, every body carries residues in this ether. A room feels heavy, because past arguments still vibrate in its invisible skin. A temple inspires peace because centuries of prayer are stored in its subtle field. This is not poetry. It is the physics of the unseen. If this is true, then think carefully. How many times have you fought shadows believing them to be monsters? The physical plane tricks you into thinking it is the origin, when in truth it is a reflection. Every event you see outside has already begun in the invisible. Every wound in the body first appeared in the ether. Every accident you suffer is the delayed echo of choices, thoughts, and vibrations. This is why Blavatsky called the physical the school of deception. Here appearances betray. What shines may poison. What looks weak may carry hidden power. What looks final is only a transition. And still, humanity worships the visible. Entire civilizations rise and fall defending what they can touch, while the invisible currents, stronger, more enduring, remain ignored. This is the tragedy of the first plane. It convinces you that you are awake while you are still asleep. What then are you to do with this knowledge? The first task is not to escape the physical, but to see through it. Blavatsky compared the physical plane to an exam designed to confuse the student. Only those who develop inner sight pass. Every discomfort in your body, every strange heaviness in a room, every coincidence in daily life. These are signals, invitations to look deeper. Do not dismiss them. Do not rush to medicate every symptom or silence every unease. Ask instead, What is vibrating beneath this surface? Train your perception. Listen to places. Observe how your mood shifts when you touch certain metals, when you carry certain stones. Notice how some people drain you while others uplift you. This is not superstition. It is the language of the ether, the invisible skin of the physical. And if you learn to read it, you stop being a prisoner. You begin to walk this world not as an actor trapped in the play, but as someone who knows he is both actor and director. This is the first threshold, the realization that matter is not master, but mask. That every stone, every body, every event you call real is only the densest ripple of forces you cannot yet see. Blavatsky did not tell her students to despise this world. She told them to respect it, to learn it, to use it without worshipping it. For the physical is not the end, it is the beginning. The doorway, the deceptive mirror you must polish until you recognize it as only a reflection. Remember this, the physical will always try to convince you that it is all there is, and the moment you forget, you fall back into sleep. But beyond this prison of flesh and stone, there lies a second realm, a world not of matter, but of pure emotion, an ocean where your desires, fears, and obsessions take shape around you. It is more seductive, more dangerous, and more revealing than the physical. This is the Astral Plane. Chapter 2. The Astral Plane, the Mirror of Desire. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine stepping out of your body while you sleep. Your chest rises and falls on the bed, but you are no longer there. You are drifting in a sea of colors, shapes, shadows, and faces. Sometimes it feels exhilarating, other times terrifying. Dreams twist into nightmares, desires erupt into visions, fears come alive as monsters. This, Blavatsky said, is not fantasy. It is the second plane of existence, the astral realm. Here, the hidden content of your emotions, your passions, your obsessions takes form. And what you carry inside, whether light or shadow, greets you outside. The astral plane is not made of flesh, stone, or atoms. It is made of pure energy in motion, molded instantly by feeling and intention. In the physical world, a lie can be hidden behind a smile. In the astral, no mask survives. Fear bleeds out of you like smoke. Desire manifests as shape. Anger erupts as fire. This is why Blavatsky described it as a distorted mirror. Everything you hide in daily life is reflected back, amplified. Here, morality does not exist. The astral does not care if something is good or bad, it only reflects vibration. If you enter with fear, fear surrounds you. If you carry love, love greets you. If you are confused, the astral becomes chaos. And here lies its double edge. It is the first realm where thought creates reality. A passing desire can take shape as a figure. A buried trauma can rise as a demon. A strong intention can build landscapes, beings, and entire worlds. But creation here does not obey logic. It obeys emotion. And emotion, uncontrolled, becomes the most dangerous architect of all. Think of the world today. Think of the waves of hatred, fear, and obsession that sweep through crowds, wars, and mass hysteria. Every one of those emotions leaves an imprint in the astral. The battlefield does not end when the guns fall silent. Its residue still lingers, saturating the astral like smoke. Places of tragedy hold an atmosphere of despair, because the astral body of the land has been wounded. This is why suicides repeat in the same locations, why some families seem trapped in cycles of sadness, why entire nations carry unshakable heaviness. The astral does not forget. And what about you? How many of your moods are not yours at all? How often do you wake up with a sadness you cannot explain, or a fear that does not belong to your story. Perhaps you have absorbed astral debris, the residue of other people's emotions, collective traumas, currents floating in the invisible ocean around us. Blavatsky was clear. Ignorance of the astral is one of humanity's greatest sources of suffering. We live inside this realm daily, yet pretend it does not exist, and so we wander defenseless through a world that shapes us without our consent. So what can be done? Blavatsky warned against superstition, ritual, or blind faith. She spoke of the discipline of attention. Just as you wash your body each morning, you must also cleanse your astral field, not with incense alone, but with awareness. By refusing to feed destructive emotions, by observing your desires before they grow claws, by refusing to be intoxicated by the garbage emotions poured out daily by the media, entertainment, and toxic conversations. What you consume is not only physical food. The images you watch, the words you repeat, the fears you absorb, all of them plant seeds in your astral field, and those seeds grow. If you learn to recognize when your sadness is not yours, when your fear belongs to the collective, when your sudden craving is a parasite feeding through you, you begin to cut the strings, you reclaim your inner space, and with practice, the astral shifts from being a swamp of confusion to becoming a training ground for lucid power. Here is the paradox. Every night, whether you believe it or not, you step into the astral. Sleep is a doorway. Dreams are your unconscious navigation of this plane. But most drift through it blind, tossed by currents, shaped by fears. A few, however, wake up inside the dream. They recognize where they are. They steer. They learn. This is why Blavatsky insisted, before you attempt to rise higher, you must master this realm. The astral is the guardian at the gate. It can deceive, intoxicate, or destroy those unprepared. But for those who learn to face it, it becomes a powerful bridge between body and mind, matter and spirit. The astral will always reflect you. The question is, what image are you casting into its waters? But even the astral is not the source. It is only the rehearsal room for something greater. Beyond emotion lies the realm of thought itself, the factory of ideas, the birthplace of visions, the battlefield of belief, the mental plane. Chapter 3. The Mental Plane, the Factory of Thought. Have you ever wondered where your thoughts truly come from? Not the chatter you hear in your head, not the voice that repeats your daily worries, but the silent force behind them, the seed from which ideas grow. Blavatsky taught that beyond the astral sea of emotions lies a third realm, vast and perilous, the mental plane. Here, thought is not abstract. Thought is substance. Every belief, every image, every idea is born, grows, mutates, and takes shape as something real. This is not a metaphor. This is the invisible factory of creation. Blavatsky described the mental plane as divided into two layers. The lower mind, a fog of recycled thoughts, prejudices, and opinions absorbed from family, culture, and society. Most people live here without knowing it. They believe they are thinking, but in truth, they are echoing borrowed voices. The higher mind, a clear space of origin, where new ideas flash like lightning, where inspiration descends not from memory, but from pure creation. This is the realm of geniuses, visionaries, and mystics. In the lower mind, you repeat what was handed to you. In the higher, you originate. The tragedy is that humanity spends most of its life in the fog, mistaking repetition for originality. But in the higher reaches of the mental plane, the mind can access what Blavatsky called the living library of the cosmos. Here, ideas are not invented, they are discovered, waiting for someone open enough to receive them. But with this power comes danger. On the mental plane, thoughts are not harmless. They become forms, real, energetic entities that survive as long as you feed them with attention and emotion. A repeated fear becomes a shadow that follows you. An obsession becomes a parasite that controls you. A prejudice, held for generations, becomes a collective egregore, a thought form so strong it can dominate entire nations. Blavatsky warned, "Ideas are living beings, and like beings, they can evolve, strengthen, and enslave their creator." How many people today are governed by their own creations? Addictions, compulsions, destructive beliefs. These are not random weaknesses. They are self-forged chains, thought forms that have grown stronger than the person who birthed them. The mental plane is merciless. It will not forgive unconscious thinking. So how do you navigate this realm without being consumed? The first step is awareness, to recognize that every thought plants a seed. Blavatsky urged her students to treat thought like fire. It can illuminate, or it can destroy. Carelessness here has consequences not only for you, but for everyone around you. If you repeat, "I cannot," you forge a wall. If you feed resentment, you attract conflict. If you dwell on scarcity, you close the channels of abundance. But if you sharpen the mind, stripping it of borrowed voices, cutting away illusions, focusing with precision, then thought becomes your greatest ally. It becomes a sword. With that sword, you can pierce deception, call down inspiration, and shape realities that ripple across planes. And here lies the most sacred secret. Every material creation begins first as a form in the mental plane. Before there is a building, there is an idea. Before there is a movement, there is a vision. Before there is transformation, there is thought. The invisible precedes the visible. Always. This is why the ancients trained the mind like a warrior trains his blade. They understood that thought, uncontrolled, is slavery. But thought, mastered, is freedom. Blavatsky compared the higher mind to a cosmic telegraph, transmitting wisdom from beyond the human into the human. She insisted that great discoveries, from the visions of prophets to the equations of scientists like Einstein and Tesla, were not accidents of logic, but flashes of higher mental contact. And yet, she also warned, the more powerful your mind, the greater the responsibility. For a thought can heal, but it can also enslave. Entire religions, empires, and tyrannies have risen from a single distorted idea given enough power. The mental plane is the first true battlefield of the soul. Here you meet the creatures of your own making, and only clarity, discipline, and ethics can protect you. But what lies beyond thought? When the fog of borrowed ideas clears, when obsessions and parasites dissolve, when even the brightest visions fall silent, another doorway appears, a doorway into a realm where the mind itself ceases and only unity remains. Here, the ego dissolves like salt in an ocean. Here, you no longer think or desire or act. Here, you simply are. The Buddhic Plane. Chapter 4. The Buddhic Plane. The Ocean of Unity. Imagine standing before a mirror that has followed you all your life. In it, you have seen your body, your emotions, and your thoughts. But now, suddenly, the mirror shatters, not into fragments, but into water. And as you fall into it, you discover there is no reflection anymore. There is no you. There is only an ocean without shore, an endless field of awareness that swallows every distinction. This is the fourth plane of existence, the realm Blavatsky called the Buddhic Plane. Not Buddhic in the sense of belonging to a religion, but in the sense of pure awakened consciousness, a state beyond mind, beyond ego, beyond separation. Up to this point, you could still believe you were someone, a body in the physical plane, an emotional dreamer in the astral, a thinker, creator, and warrior in the mental. But here, individuality collapses. The ego, which fought so hard to survive, dissolves like salt in water. This is not symbolic. It is a felt reality. You are no longer an observer looking at unity. You are unity. Blavatsky described this moment as the death of the I. Not a metaphorical death, but an existential one. And yet, unlike physical death, here there is no fear. The very vibration of fear cannot exist in this realm. Instead, there is a peace so vast that the word peace feels inadequate, like trying to describe the sun as a candle. The Buddhic plane is the plane of direct knowing. There is no reasoning, no comparing, no analyzing. Truth simply shines, total and complete, as if you had always known it, but had forgotten. At first this sounds blissful, to dissolve into oneness, to lose all sense of separation. But here lies the challenge. Once you touch this level, life in the physical plane becomes almost unbearable. Imagine tasting water so pure that every sip of ordinary water afterward feels poisoned. That is what happens to the soul that touches the Buddhic plane. The return to daily life, with its lies, noise, conflicts, separations, is painful, even brutal. Many who have glimpsed it cannot return unchanged. Some withdraw from the world, others become strange, unfit for ordinary society. This is why Blavatsky insisted, the real work is not to escape into unity, but to anchor unity into matter, to live in separation while remembering the truth of inseparability, to act in a fractured world while vibrating with the memory of wholeness. And here lies the burden. Once you have seen, you are responsible. Every act, every thought, every intention vibrates through the whole. If you lie, the fabric of unity bends. If you hate, you fracture it. If you love, it heals. Nothing is small here, because everything touches everything. So how do you carry the Buddhic awareness into the lower planes? Not by preaching unity, not by decorating your ego with spiritual slogans, but by being united in action. When you meet another person, remember they are not other. They are you in another form. When you encounter conflict, see it as two waves of the same ocean colliding. No enemy, only currents of the same water. When you feel despair at the state of the world, realize you are not apart from the world. You are one thread in the great tapestry. Blavatsky taught that those who can anchor even a fragment of Buddhic awareness become living transmitters. Their presence alone heals. They do not need to speak. They do not need to convince. Their vibration rearranges the space around them like a tuning fork setting all instruments in resonance. This is why true sages, the ones history barely remembers, could transform lives simply by being present. They were channels of the Buddhic plane, rivers carrying unity into the fractured world of matter. And you too are called to this, not to escape the physical, but to embody the Buddhic truth while walking through it. The Buddhic plane is both liberation and responsibility. Liberation, because the ego dissolves and you awaken to the truth that you are never separate. Responsibility, because you realize every choice ripples across the fabric of all existence. Here, the illusion of my life ends. There is only life, flowing through countless forms. Here, love is no longer personal, conditional, or possessive. It is impersonal compassion, the recognition that to heal another is to heal yourself because there is no other. And yet, Blavatsky warned, do not romanticize this state. Do not imagine it is a permanent refuge. The soul that touches it must still descend again, must still walk through the mud of lower planes, carrying fragments of light. This is the true heroism, not escaping the world, but transforming it by remembering what you have seen. But beyond unity, another fire waits. For the Buddhic Plane is not the summit. It is only the threshold. What lies ahead is no longer about peace or compassion. It is about will, pure, divine, unbreakable. It is the plane of certainty, of purpose that does not ask permission, of a current so strong it burns through all masks, the Atmic Plane. Chapter 5. The Atmic Plane, the Fire of Divine Will. There comes a moment when unity is no longer enough. To feel the ocean of oneness is overwhelming, liberating, transcendent, but the current of existence does not stop at bliss. Beyond compassion, beyond pure awareness, lies another dimension. A dimension not of thought, not of feeling, not even of unity, but of action, born of essence. Blavatsky called this the Atmic Plane. Here, consciousness is no longer a mirror, no longer an ocean. It is a flame, a straight, unstoppable current of will, moving without hesitation, without doubt, without return. On the physical plane, will feels fragile. You say, I want to quit, but temptation wins. You say, I will change, but habit drags you back. Human will is fractured, diluted by fear, desire, and indecision. But on the Atmic Plane, will is no longer a choice. It is not a preference. It is not I want. It is I am. Here, the essence of your being acts as a force itself. Not effort, not struggle, but inevitability. Like the gravity that holds planets in orbit, Atmic will is unarguable. It simply moves, burns, and cuts. Blavatsky described it as the sword of the spirit, a power so absolute that it exposes every falsehood instantly. Masks fall away, roles dissolve, excuses crumble. In this plane, you do not negotiate with destiny, you embody it. This may sound exhilarating, but imagine the terror of discovering that your true essence is not what you expected. The Atmic Plane is not the realm of personal dreams or wishes. It is the realm of the soul's naked purpose, stripped of comfort, stripped of ego's fantasies. You may find that what you thought you wanted, safety, success, recognition, is irrelevant here. The Atmic will burn all of it away, and what remains may shock you. Perhaps your essence is to break systems, to disrupt comfort, to walk away from everything you once called life. Perhaps your essence is to endure storms, to carry a burden others cannot. Perhaps it is to blaze so brightly that you unsettle every room you enter. The Atmic Plane does not flatter, it reveals. And many souls retreat in fear, unwilling to surrender their little identities to the fire of certainty. This is why Blavatsky warned, few can stand this level. To touch it is to lose all masks, to resist it is to shatter. So how do you prepare for such a current? The secret is surrender. Not passive resignation, but a conscious letting go of every false layer until only the essential remains. When you act from ego, you struggle. When you act from fear, you hesitate. When you act from desire, you waver. But when you act from essence, there is no struggle. There is only flow. Training for this is not about rituals or chants. It is about honesty, radical honesty. Every time you lie to yourself, you dull your Atmic spark. Every time you cling to comfort over truth, you bury it. But each time you choose what is essential, even at personal cost, you align with the fire. And when that alignment is complete, will becomes unstoppable. Not because you force it, but because you are it. Blavatsky taught that great revolutions, great movements of history, do not come from plans alone. They come from souls ignited by the Atmic Plane, acting as channels for a will greater than themselves. One person aligned with Atmic fire can shake nations. The Atmic Plane is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it leaves no room for half-truths, no tolerance for masks. Liberating because once you know your essence, there is no more doubt, no more wandering, no more searching. Here, freedom is not doing what you want. Freedom is being what you are, without apology, without permission, without compromise. Imagine a mountain. It does not ask to exist. It does not seek approval. It simply stands, immovable, defining the horizon. That is Atmic will. That is you, once all falsehood burns away. But even fire is not the end. Beyond the Atmic plane, the soul discovers something stranger still. A dimension where even will dissolves, where individuality itself collapses into the spark of the monad, the primal seed of existence, the Monadic Plane. Chapter 6. The Monadic Plane, the spark beyond the self. What remains when even fire has burned itself out? When the sword of will has cut through every illusion, every mask, every identity? What remains is not a person, not a soul, not even a purpose. What remains is a spark, indivisible, primordial, older than time itself. Blavatsky called it the monad, the eternal fragment of the absolute. It is you. And yet it is not you as you have ever known yourself. On the physical plane, you are a body. On the astral, you are emotions. On the mental, you are thoughts. On the Buddhic, you are unity. On the Atmic, you are will. But here, on the Monadic plane, none of these descriptions hold. The monad is not a personality. It is not memory. It is not a story. It is the seed of being, a point of pure existence, indivisible and unalterable, beyond time and space. Blavatsky described the monad as the eternal pilgrim. It descends into matter, clothing itself in countless forms across ages, lives and worlds, only to eventually strip them all away, returning to its essence. And in that essence, there is no duality, no me versus you, no inner versus outer. There is only the isness of existence. At first, this may sound like liberation. To reach the monad is to stand at the core of your being, eternal, indestructible. But for the ego, it is terror. Because here, the story ends. The I you have defended since childhood cannot survive the monadic flame. Your name, your face, your triumphs, your wounds, all dissolve. And what takes their place? A silence so absolute it feels like death, yet carries within it the pulse of eternity. You do not say, I am the monad. You cannot. The monad has no I. It is beyond self-reference. It simply exists, radiating existence itself. Many seekers recoil at this level. They cling desperately to their individuality, refusing to let go. They want eternity, but only if their little identity comes along for the ride. The Monadic plane exposes this attachment as illusion. Here, there is no passenger to carry forward, only spark. What does this mean for life in the lower planes? It means remembering that beneath all masks, beneath all roles, beneath all desires, there is a point of unshakable essence that cannot be harmed, corrupted, or destroyed. When you suffer loss, recall the monad. That which you truly are cannot be lost. When you fear death, recall the monad. That which you truly are cannot die. When you feel small, insignificant, trapped in failure, recall the monad. You are not your story. You are not your fear. You are not even your soul's journey. You are a spark. To live from this awareness is to move through the world with a strange serenity. Success does not inflate you. Failure does not crush you. Praise and blame lose their grip. You become like a flame inside glass, untouched by the storms outside, steady in its own light. Blavatsky insisted that the monad is the true anchor of immortality, not the personality which changes with every life, not even the higher soul which evolves and grows. The monad is the unchanging witness, the pulse of the absolute within the finite. Here, on the Monadic Plane, the pilgrimage of individuality comes to its close. The student, the seeker, the warrior, the mystic, all vanish. What remains is essence, naked and eternal. And yet, even this is not the summit, for beyond the spark lies the unfathomable silence from which even sparks are born, the absolute, the unmanifest, the abyss without a name. The monad is eternal, yes, but it is still a fragment, still a ripple, still a point within a greater ocean. And so the final step remains, the final veil, the final dissolution. Beyond the monad there is no form, no spark, no vibration, only the absolute, the unthinkable ground of all being, where even eternity collapses into silence. The seventh plane. Chapter 7. Seventh Plane. The Absolute. Slow down. Quieter. Quieter still, until even the word silence is too loud. This is the threshold Blavatsky called Parabrahman, not a god among gods, not a highest heaven, not a radiant throne. The Absolute is prior to light and prior to darkness, prior even to the field in which consciousness can appear. Here, the very possibility of experience collapses. There is no witness and nothing witnessed. No state, no beyond, no entering, no you. You have not arrived. You have vanished. The mind searches for metaphors, ocean, void, mirror, but every image betrays what cannot be imagined. The Absolute is not a place, not a prize, not a culmination of merit. It is the groundless ground from which being sometimes shimmers forth and to which it never returns, because it never left. You want to say presence, but presence presumes an absence. You want to say infinite, but infinity presumes measure. You want to say one, but the number presumes separation. Blavatsky's razor cuts through every sacred word. Parabrahman is not. And yet, everything that is hangs impossibly from this notness. From here, love and cruelty lie side by side in the same perfect neutrality, not because the Absolute is cruel, but because it does not divide. There is no court here, no judge, no final scale. What you call meaning is a movement within being. What you call redemption is a rearrangement within being. What you call damnation is a fixation within being. To the Absolute, these are ripples on a mirror that does not ripple. This is the scandal. The most shattering consolation is that nothing is needed. The most terrifying mercy is that nothing is guaranteed. The Absolute does not save and cannot abandon. It simply is, by not being anything at all. What could possibly be actionable in a domain prior to action? Only this: stop adding. Let naming fall away for one breath at a time. Let grasping fall away for one sensation at a time. Let the story fall away for one moment at a time. Practice subtraction. Netty, not this, not that, until the urge to certify reality with a label weakens. What remains is not an object, it is the absence from which objects arise. Stand, if we must use a verb, as that absence while you move through the market, wash the dishes, and forgive your enemies. This is not detachment as escape, it is intimacy without possession. Nothing is pushed away, nothing is clung to. The world appears as weather on a sky that cannot be stormed. Listen carefully to what cannot be heard, the cessation of the searcher. The final veil is not torn, it stops being there. Here, the oldest sentence becomes true without needing to be spoken. You are not a human seeking God. You are a dreaming human. If this sounds grand, you are still hearing it with the ego's ear. There is nothing grand in it. It is ordinary beyond all ordinariness, a fact without flourish, an intimacy without edge. And yet, whisper this, y aún así nada de esto importa. Because in the absolute, even absolute is too much. Now we must do the bravest thing of all. Admit that even this ladder, even these 7 planes, even this perfect story of ascent is just that, a story, the last most exquisite mask. Closing, the brutal truth. Take a breath. Feel how the mind tries to keep its prize, 7 jewels labeled planes, strung like trophies on a silk cord. Beautiful, coherent, satisfying. Now watch that cord snap. Every map is an act of mercy for a traveler who is not lost, but the map is not the mountain, and the mountain is not the earth, and the earth is not the sky. The 7 planes are a luminous pedagogy, a careful staging of your unlearning. Nothing more. You cannot carry them beyond the door because there is no beyond to carry them into. Physical, astral, mental, Buddhic, Atmic, Monadic, absolute. Each was a scaffolding erected around your fear of falling. You climbed, and as you climbed, the scaffolding removed itself. If you look back now and see a staircase, that too is an illusion. There is no backward to look toward. This is the last trap, the spiritual ego that survives as a curator of revelations. I know the planes. I've touched unity. I act from will. I abide as the spark. Listen to the pronoun. It will not die easily. It will smuggle itself into holiness, take selfies in front of the abyss, and call that surrender. Let it speak and do not answer. Let it be and do not bargain. Let it sell you certainty and do not buy. In the end, the only thing you can keep is what you can keep without a keeper, which is to say, nothing. How to live after the map burns? Plainly. Tell the truth where you can, 'cause the least harm you can see. Do the next true thing without needing an identity to pin it on. Stay with what is. One breath, one sensation, one human being at a time. 3 tiny practices, repeated until they are nobodies. Stop naming for a beat. Let sights be colors, sounds be tones, feelings be textures, unsponsored by a story. Let the pause lengthen. Between impulse and act, widen the silence until kindness fits through. Return what isn't yours. When a mood enters that has no home in your marrow, fear, frenzy, borrowed despair, say, not mine, and not refused. Watch it pass like the weather. If the absolute leveled the hierarchy of meanings, compassion levels the hierarchy of beings. Without a theory to defend, kindness becomes the most precise metaphysics. Do you see the joke now? Not a cruel one, an ancient, tender one. The universe dressed up as a maze so you could enjoy the taste of finding your way. You tore off mask after mask until you discovered there was never a face. Only this, too close to see, too simple to praise. There is no grand finale because there is no theatre. The curtain never lifts because there is no stage. Only the audience remained, and then even they were gone. If you have come this far, it is already too late for the old life of consolations. Something in you has heard what cannot be unheard. You can go back to work, to family, to weather, to taxes, to tears, and you should. The ordinary is the only temple that never closes, but you cannot go back to sleep, not fully, and that is enough, more than enough. If you've reached this point, you know you can no longer ignore the situation.